She was hired to care for a little girl, nothing more. A young black woman with a quiet smile, a worn tote bag, and the kind of grace that didn't seem to belong in a penthouse built on power, legacy, and rules. But when the wrong person saw her dancing barefoot with the millionaire's daughter, laughing, spinning free, it set off a storm. Not because of the dance, but because of who was dancing. What followed was worse than silence. Words meant to wound. A legacy woman, sharp-tongued and cold, told her she didn't belong, that her skin, her story, her softness had no place in a world carved by glass and entitlement. But she stood tall, not in anger but in truth, and that changed everything. This story isn't what you think. It's not just about race or class or control. It's about something deeper, the walls we inherit, and the quiet courage it takes to tear them down. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next story that just might move you in unexpected ways. And let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? Stay with us until the end. You may find yourself changed, just like he was. The city hummed like a machine that never turned off. From the 38th floor, the skyline stretched endlessly, jagged, brilliant, indifferent. It reminded Ethan Wells of himself, efficient, impenetrable, built to keep things out. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, coffee untouched, sleeves still rolled from a day that hadn't ended. Nights were quieter now, but never peaceful. Behind him, silence pressed in like a weight. His daughter hadn't spoken much all week. Not that she'd said much in the past year, not since Amanda died. 6 years old and already learning how to shrink herself into corners, how to disappear into walls, just like him. Claire's voice had echoed in his head all day. You need someone full-time, Ethan. Lila's not coping. He hated that word. Coping meant weakness, and weakness had no place in this house, in his life. Still, she wasn't wrong. 4 nannies had come and gone. Too soft, too talkative, too emotional. One cried because Lila wouldn't hug her goodbye. Another decorated the hallway with finger paintings. Ethan had fired her before dinner. But tonight the house felt colder than usual. He moved to the hallway. The light was dim, quiet. Lila's bedroom door was slightly ajar. He stood there for a moment, listening to nothing. A bear-shaped nightlight cast soft yellow light against the walls, outlining the small figure curled under the blanket. One hand clutched her mother's scarf. The other was clenched tight, as if even sleep demanded control. He turned away, jaw clenched. This wasn't working. She wasn't getting better, and he couldn't fix her. He could manage millions in global strategy, but not one grieving child. The elevator chimed. Claire stepped out, tablet in hand, her heels echoing on the marble floor. I took the liberty of arranging an interview, she said briskly. You didn't object when I mentioned it this morning. Ethan blinked. He didn't remember that. His mind had been elsewhere. Graphs, numbers, projections, distractions. She's here? He asked, a touch too sharp. Claire gave a single nod. You said you needed someone by the weekend. He didn't argue. Claire knew better than to bring someone to his home without doing her homework. But still, he hadn't told his mother. Too late now. The second elevator opened. A woman stepped out. She didn't belong here. Not because of the jeans or the soft fabric tote hanging from her shoulder. Not because of her warm brown skin or the heavy curls pinned back with a single gold clip. But because she brought light. And this place rejected light. Her eyes swept the room once, steady, unafraid. Then she smiled. Genuine, open, the kind of smile no one wore around Ethan Wells. Mr. Wells? She asked. Her voice was smooth, grounded. He didn't answer. Immediately, he studied her. She didn't flinch. Points for that. This is Rosa Garcia, Claire offered, clearing her throat. 28, former elementary teacher, background in arts education, fluent in Spanish, excellent references. Ethan's gaze lingered on Rosa's shoes, Worn souls, practical. Not someone here to impress. But something about her, he couldn't name it, irritated him. Too casual, too confident, too present. Rosa waited, patient, unreadable. He finally said, 1 week, trial. She nodded. Understood. Claire gave her a tight smile, then turned back to Ethan. I'll leave you two to get acquainted. He barely noticed her leave. He was still watching Rosa, who had already shifted her focus. She looked past him toward the hallway, where the muted pink glow of Lila's room spilled faintly across the floor. I read her profile, Rosa said quietly. I'd like to meet her. She's asleep, Ethan replied, more defensively than necessary. Rosa didn't press. She simply nodded, then moved toward the window instead, her eyes taking in the glass, the steel, the spotless elegance. This place doesn't breathe, she murmured. He stiffened. Excuse me? Rosa turned to him calmly. It's beautiful, but it doesn't breathe. Children need space to exhale. A beat of silence passed. The air grew heavier. Just follow the schedule, he said flatly. No improvisation, no distractions. Of course, she answered. He expected resistance, there was none. Somehow, that unsettled him more. That night, he checked the security camera feed from his phone. Rosa moved quietly around the kitchen, unpacking her things. She opened a cupboard, paused, then rearranged a shelf of mismatched mugs. He narrowed his eyes. No one rearranged his shelves. Then he saw her take a notebook from her bag and write something down. She smiled to herself, just slightly. He turned off the screen. Something about her didn't fit. And yet, for reasons he couldn't explain, he hadn't sent her away. The next morning, when he entered the kitchen, the air felt different. There was music playing softly, instrumental, something old, and for the first time in weeks, the dining table wasn't just set. There was a folded napkin with a sun drawn in yellow crayon, Lila's doing. He looked around, no one in sight. Then he heard it, a faint laugh. Not his daughter's. Something cracked. He left the room. The first morning felt unfamiliar. Not wrong, just unfamiliar, like a song in a different key. Rosa moved through the penthouse as if she belonged, yet never once overstepped. She didn't ask permission to open cabinets, yet she folded every towel tighter than housekeeping ever did. She hummed softly as she worked, low, melodic, some tune Ethan couldn't place but couldn't forget. By 7 a.m., the kitchen smelled like cinnamon and vanilla, warm, inviting, unnerving. He hadn't smelled food in the morning since Amanda died. Just coffee, burnt toast sometimes. But not this, not comfort. Lila sat at the island, legs swinging slightly, hair still mussed from sleep. Rosa stood beside her, handing over a spoon like it were sacred. Lila accepted it with a smile Ethan hadn't seen in months. He stood in the doorway, frozen. Rosa looked up. Good morning, Mr. Wells. He cleared his throat. You're early. I like being early, she said. It gives the day a head start. Ethan said nothing, just walked past, grabbed his coffee and left the room. But not before. He saw the drawing taped to the fridge, a son with arms and legs and curly hair. Lila had written Miss Rosa underneath it. By afternoon, the air had changed. The penthouse, once quiet like a museum, now breathed. There were faint sounds, paper, rustling, colored pencils scratching, music drifting through a cracked door. Lila's door. He paused outside it. Rosa's voice flowed steadily and warmly. Try blending it here with your finger. See? The sunset looks more real when it isn't perfect. Lila giggled. He turned away. The elevator dinged. His ubaiti, stomach dropped. He knew that sound, that particular timing, that rhythm of heels. Ethan! The voice cut through the air before the doors even fully opened. Eleanor Langford. Her perfume hit before her presence, strong, sweet, invasive. She walked into the penthouse like she owned half of it, which, socially speaking, she almost. Dere, daughter of his late father's closest friend, raised in the same circles, expected to be his partner someday, at least by his mother. She smiled like it meant something. I was nearby. Thought I'd check on my favorite little girl, she said, glancing toward Lila's door. She didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped in front of her. She's busy. With what? Eleanor raised a manicured brow. Art. Art, she repeated, amused. Let me guess. Finger painting? Charcoal blending? Rosa's voice chimed from behind Lila's door. Eleanor turned slowly. Rosa stepped into view, calm and composed, a smear of graphite on one hand, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Eleanor blinked. And you are? Rosa. Garcia, Lila's nanny. Eleanor gave a small, tight smile. How charming. Rosa offered nothing back. Ethan saw it then, subtle, like smoke under glass. The shift in Eleanor's posture, the narrowed eyes, the tilted chin, the silent question in her expression. Why her? Where did you find this one? She asked, not breaking eye contact with Rosa. Claire recommended her, Ethan replied. Eleanor smiled at him, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course she did. Lila appeared in the doorway, holding up a sheet of paper. Daddy, look. He took it. A drawing of 3 figures, her, Rosa, and himself. Rosa was the tallest, with the sun above her head. Eleanor glanced over, then laughed lightly. So she's the sunshine in your little world now, huh? The comment wasn't meant for Lila, but the girl heard. Her face shifted, just slightly, and she tucked herself behind Rosa's leg. Rosa bent down, whispering something in Lila's. Lila nodded and went back into her room. Only then did Rosa stand, eyes still gentle but steely now. Would you like coffee, Ms. Langford? No, thank you, Eleanor replied coldly. I'll let you two talk then, Rosa said. Walking back toward the hallway, Ethan watched her go. Not one word wasted, not one step uncertain. Eleanor waited until she was out of earshot. You didn't tell your mother. I didn't think it was her decision. She won't like this. She's not raising my daughter. Eleanor's smile returned, brittle this time. No, but she knows what kind of people don't belong in this house. Ethan didn't answer. You're making a mistake, she added, voice low, silky. She won't stay. They never do. That night, Ethan found himself standing in the hallway again, staring at the closed door of his daughter's room. Behind it, Rosa and Lila talked quietly. No laughter this time, just softness, warmth. He turned toward his room, stopped. The drawing Lila had given him earlier lay on his nightstand. He picked it up. The sun above Rosa's head was bright yellow, drawn with heavy strokes. The next morning, he found Eleanor's car no longer outside. But Rosa was in the kitchen, singing something in Spanish under her breath while slicing strawberries. Lila sat beside her, cheeks pink, eyes alive. The sunlight hit the counter like it hadn't in years. And Ethan Wells stood there, listening to a home that was learning how to breathe again. The curtain moved. Just slightly. A whisper against the glass. Eleanor Langford stood in the guest wing's lounge, fingers wrapped around a crystal tumbler she hadn't touched. The penthouse lights cast her silhouette like a stain on the wall. Her gaze was fixed through the sliver between the heavy drapes, across the living room, to where Rosa and Lila were dancing. There was no music playing, just the rhythm of laughter, soft and unguarded. Rosa moved with ease, barefoot on the hardwood floor, guiding Lila in small circles. The child's smile was wide, head tilted back, free. Too free. Eleanor's nails tapped the side of her glass. She leaned closer. Rosa's hair had fallen loose, her cheeks flushed with motion. She twirled Lila once, then dipped her slightly, both of them collapsing onto the floor in a fit of laughter. That was the moment she took the photo. Just one. Just enough. The phone made no sound. She didn't need a second. Ethan wouldn't see it at first. He never did. Always blind to danger when it was dressed in warmth. She closed the curtain. The next morning arrived heavy with fog. The city. Outside was gray, blurred at the edges. Inside, everything gleamed as always. Marble cold, glass spotless, silence carefully constructed. Rosa walked into the living room holding a folded blanket. Her steps slowed when she saw Eleanor sipping coffee from one of the china cups she'd never even unboxed. "Morning," Rosa said, even. Eleanor didn't look up. "Help yourself. I'm sure the kitchen's still open." "I already had tea, thanks." Eleanor finally met her gaze. The temperature in the room dropped. "You're very comfortable here," Eleanor said, voice smooth but edged, settling in fast. Rosa folded the blanket slowly, precisely. "Lila's adjusting well, that's what matters." Eleanor gave a dry laugh. "Is that what matters to you, the child?" Rosa didn't answer immediately. She placed the blanket on the armrest and met Eleanor's stare with calm. "I care about her. Deeply." "That's adorable." "Excuse me?" "Forgive me," Eleanor said, placing the cup down. "It's just amusing how quickly you people form attachments." There it was, sharp, measured, hidden behind polite venom. Rosa didn't blink. "You mean people who care?" Eleanor stood, smoothing her dress. "I mean people who don't belong in this world, yet try so desperately to pretend they do." Rosa felt the hit, but she didn't flinch. Not this time. Before she could respond, a voice broke the standoff. "Miss Rosa," Lila appeared in the hallway, clutching her sketch pad. "Can you help me finish the sunrise?" Rosa's face softened. "Of course." She turned without another word. Eleanor watched them walk away. The girl didn't even glance at her. That was new. By noon, the photo had been sent, to one person only. Ethan's mother. The message was brief. "You should see who's shaping your granddaughter's days. You may want to visit sooner than planned." The response came 2 hours later. "I'm coming tomorrow." Rosa didn't know, not yet. That evening, Ethan came home early. A rare thing. He found Rosa in the study with Lila, helping her build something. With blocks and string, he paused in the doorway. There was quiet joy in the room, like something sacred. Lila was speaking more, moving with more ease. He should have felt relieved. Instead, something tightened in his chest. He cleared his throat. Rosa looked up. "Welcome back." He nodded. "Can we talk?" She rose gently. "Lila, I'll be back in a minute." They stepped into the hallway. Ethan motioned toward the kitchen. He didn't sit. Rosa waited. "Did you dance with her yesterday?" he asked, voice flat. "I did," she answered. "In the living room?" "Yes." He said nothing. Just looked at her like she'd crossed a line she couldn't see. "I didn't think it would be a problem," she added. She asked, she smiled. "It's not about smiling." "Then what is it about?" He didn't respond right away. "There are expectations in this house," he said finally. "Standards. My mother will be visiting tomorrow. I suggest you be measured." Rosa's gaze sharpened. "Measured?" He held her eyes. "You know what I mean." She did, every word of it. And yet, she nodded. Not out of agreement, out of understanding. That night, she stood by her bedroom window, looking out over the city. The light stretched forever, but she felt the walls closing in. She'd been here less than a week, and already someone had drawn a target on her back. The door opened with the sound of finality. Rosa stood alone in the parlor, the tall windows behind her blurred with gray. The sky outside was low and heavy, like it had something to say but refused to speak. Then came the footsteps, measured, slow, sharp on marble. Ethan's mother entered the room like a queen returning, to a court she never truly left. Every line on her face was deliberate. Every movement carried the weight of generations. Her coat was deep navy, her gloves still on. She didn't offer a smile. "Miss Garcia," she said without warmth, "sit." Rosa sat. The silence stretched. Beneath the surface, the air chilled. "You've made quite the impression," the older woman began, voice like glass. "Ethan speaks little, but I've heard more from others." Rosa's hands were still. "Lila is doing well." She was not unwell. Rosa's jaw tightened. She was silent. The older woman's eyes narrowed. "And now she dances. Paints the walls? It washes off. That's not the point." "No," Rosa replied, "it's not." For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then the tone shifted, quieter but colder. "You are a guest in this house," the woman said. "Do you understand what that means?" "I do." "You are here to serve a role, not to occupy a space. That is not yours." The words landed like frost. Rosa didn't flinch. "I care for Lila," she said. "You care too loudly." Rosa leaned forward slightly, her voice low. She was fading. I gave her breath. "You gave her confusion. Or clarity." The old woman's gaze sharpened. "You are not her mother." "No, but I'm the only one listening." The air cracked like a pain under pressure. Then came the final blow. "I think it's time we found someone more fitting." Rosa's throat tightened. She looked away for just a second. Then her gaze locked back in. "I didn't come here to prove anything. Not to you, not to your son, and certainly not to a name carved in old stone." She stood. "But I will not stay where I am unwelcome." The woman rose too. "At last, something we agree on." Rosa walked out. The hallway stretched long. Her footsteps sounded louder than usual. Everything echoed. She passed Ethan's study, paused, then walked on. Upstairs, Lila sat in the reading nook, knees to her chest, arms around a stuffed elephant. She looked up, eyes wide. Rosa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, sunshine." Lila slid off the cushion and ran to her, wrapping her arms around Rosa's waist without a word. Rosa knelt. "I have to go," she said gently. Lila clutched tighter. "Why?" Rosa's voice trembled. "Because some people don't want me here, but I do." Rosa swallowed hard. "That means more than you know." Lila blinked, then turned, rummaging through her backpack. She pulled out a folded sheet of paper smudged at the edges. Crayon, scribbles, a drawing of Rosa and Lila holding hands under a sky of blue and yellow swirls. In the corner, written, in shaky, uneven letters, "Rosa is my home." Rosa's breath caught. She held the paper to her chest. Later, she packed her bag in silence. Every item was folded with care. She didn't take much, just what she brought, just what the house would never claim as its own. When she zipped the bag shut, her fingers hesitated. She looked around the guest room. Clean, tidy, impersonal. A place to be tolerated, not to belong. At the door, she stopped once more, then opened it. Ethan stood there, not blocking her way, not moving aside either. "You talked to her," Rosa said. He nodded. "She called me after the photo." "Did you defend me?" "I asked her to be respectful." "That's not an answer." He looked away. Rosa's heart ached, but not with surprise. She'd seen it in him from day one. Distance masquerading as dignity. Control hiding fear. "You didn't believe I belonged here," she said. "I didn't know what to believe. I gave everything I had to help your daughter breathe again." "And you did," Ethan said softly. "But not enough to stay?" He didn't respond. Rosa nodded. "That's all I needed to know." She stepped past him. He didn't follow. She walked through the living room. It felt colder than ever. The kitchen light was still on. On the counter sat the last thing she'd made. Banana muffins with Lila, half-eaten, crumbs scattered like tiny goodbyes. She left the drawing on the island and closed the door behind. During that night, the penthouse was quiet again, but not peaceful. Lila didn't ask to play. She didn't speak during dinner. She didn't smile. Ethan sat across from her at the table, watching the tiny movements of her spoon as it circled the same patch of soup. He wanted to say something, anything, but there was no language for the emptiness he'd helped create. The apartment was too still. Ethan sat in his office long past midnight, the glow from his laptop casting pale light on his face. Numbers blurred, words repeated. Nothing landed. Beyond the glass, the city flickered in hushed pulses. But inside, the silence had thickened into something unbearable. He hadn't heard Lila speak all day. Not a laugh. Not a word. He told himself she was adjusting. That structure would help. Her realign. But he'd seen the way her spoon moved circles in untouched soup. The way her eyes didn't lift from the floor. Like someone had switched off the light inside her. The drawing Rosa left still sat on the kitchen island. Crayon colors dulled by the dark. He hadn't moved it. Couldn't. He closed his laptop and stood. A sound stopped him. It was faint, then sharp, like a cough swallowed too fast, like something stifled. He turned. Then he heard it. A cry. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just small. Cracked. Daddy. The hallway stretched ahead, dim and cold. He ran. Lila was curled in bed, soaked in sweat. Her hair clung to her forehead. Her breath came in shallow pants. Her cheeks were flushed, but her hands were cold. He knelt, panic rising. Lila! Her eyes fluttered. She didn't speak. He touched her forehead, burning. He fumbled for his phone, dialed the on-call pediatrician. Rang twice before connecting. She's running a fever, Ethan said quickly. She's shaking. No, she's not talking. I don't know the temp, just tell me what to do. The voice on the other end tried to stay calm. Cool. Compress, hydration, monitor breathing if it spikes. But Ethan wasn't listening anymore. Lila whimpered, her voice barely a whisper. Miss Rosa. His heart stopped. He sat there frozen, the name hanging between them like an indictment. Miss Rosa. Not Mommy. Not Daddy. Rosa. He stood, rushed to the bathroom and soaked a washcloth in cold water. His hands shook. The cloth slipped. Water splashed. Time blurred. He returned, pressed the cloth to Lila's forehead. She winced at the touch. Shh, he whispered. It's okay. But it wasn't. She didn't settle. Her eyes darted under her lids. Her lips trembled, cracked from the heat. He reached for the thermometer, dropped it. It rolled under the bed. He cursed. Crawled after it. When he surfaced again, Lila was crying softly. Miss Rosa. He didn't think. He opened his phone, scrolled to her name, paused. Pride clawed at his throat, but fear drowned it. He hit call. It rang once. Then, again. Then, hello. Her voice was groggy, caught in sleep. Rosa, he breathed. It's Lila. She's sick. She's burning up. She's asking for you. There was silence. Then, I'll be there in 15 minutes. The line went dead. He sat there, stunned. 15 minutes later, she arrived. No hesitation, no questions, just action. She moved past him like a storm, quiet, fast, focused, dropped her coat on the floor, took the cloth from his hand. Changed it, sat beside Lila, spoke softly. Hey baby, I'm here. Lila turned into her like a flower to sunlight. Ethan stepped back, watched. Useless. Rosa cradled the girl's head, adjusted the blanket, and pressed her palm gently to Lila's chest. Her voice was a melody, low, rhythmic, soothing. She'll Be okay, she said without looking at him. It's a virus, I've seen this before. He nodded. Couldn't speak. She needs rest, fluids, cool air. He opened a window without thinking. She reached for her bag, pulled out a balm, rubbed it on Lila's chest. The child's breathing slowed. The room softened. Ethan stood in the doorway, hands trembling. Rosa never looked at him. She didn't ask why he called. She didn't ask why he didn't defend her. She didn't ask why she was pushed out in the first place. She just stayed. Because Lila needed her, and she was who Lila trusted. The weight of it pressed into Ethan like stone. He left the room. In the kitchen, he stared at the crayon drawing again. Rosa is my home. The truth of it was now undeniable. At dawn, he found Rosa asleep in the chair beside Lila's bed, one hand resting lightly on the child's blanket. Lila slept soundly, skin no longer red, breath even. He didn't wake her. He just stood there watching the two people he had failed, one out of fear, the other out of silence. When Rosa stirred and opened her eyes, she saw him at the doorway. He said nothing at first, then quietly, "You didn't have to come." She looked at him, tired but steady. "She needed me. I should have." He stopped. She waited. "I should have told my mother to leave." Rosa's eyes softened, but not with forgiveness. "You still can," she said. He nodded. But they both knew that actions spoke louder than apologies. The sky cracked open with a low rumble. Rain pressed against the glass like fingers tapping from the other side. Inside the penthouse, the storm was quieter, but more exact. Ethan stood in the kitchen, pouring coffee that had gone cold before it hit the cup. He didn't drink it. He hadn't slept. Every sound in the apartment felt too loud now. Every footstep, every breath, every silence. Rosa was still asleep on the chair in Lila's room. He hadn't dared to move her. Not after what she'd done. Not after what he hadn't. When Rosa finally stirred, she moved slowly, stretching the stiffness out of her limbs. Lila didn't wake. She looked peaceful now, flushed with color instead of fever. Rosa brushed the girl's hair back gently, then stepped into the hallway without a word. Ethan met her there. Words crowded his throat, none of them good enough. "You should get some sleep," he said. "I'm fine," she replied. He nodded. Of course she was. Rosa was always fine. Until someone forced her not to be. A knock broke the moment. Sharp, impatient. Ethan's breath caught. He knew that knock. When he opened the door, Eleanor stood there, perfectly composed in a trench coat too pristine for the weather. "I came to check on Lila," she said smoothly. "I heard she was sick." "You heard?" "Claire mentioned it." He stepped aside reluctantly. She entered like the air owed her space. As she turned the corner, she froze. Rosa stood there, arms crossed, calm but unmovable. Eleanor smiled, brittle. "You're still here." Rosa tilted her head. "I am." Eleanor's gaze flicked. To Ethan. "You didn't tell me she returned." "I didn't think I had to," he said. "Oh, but you do," she replied, "after what she pulled. How did your mother feel? Surely you understand what that looks like." "I know exactly what it looks like," Rosa said. Eleanor blinked, her lips parted. "You're angry I didn't leave broken," Rosa continued, voice low, steady. "You're angry I still stand in this house like I belong, but I do. Not because of your permission, because of what Lila sees, because of what I've given her." Eleanor scoffed. "You've given her instability." "I gave her safety," Rosa snapped. "The kind you never gave her with your smug visits and empty gifts." The temperature dropped. Eleanor's eyes flared, her mask slipping. "You think a few hugs and bedtime stories make you a mother?" "No," Rosa said, "but they make me human. Something you haven't managed in a long time." Silence. Cracked open like lightning. Lila stepped into the hallway, her voice soft and certain. I don't like you. Eleanor turned, stunned. Lila stared at her, arms limp at her sides, eyes clear. You're not kind. Ethan moved forward, protective, but Rosa gently put a hand on his arm. He stopped. Eleanor recovered, smoothing her coat. Children don't always know what's best for them. They know who makes them feel safe, Ethan said. Eleanor narrowed her eyes. Your mother will not accept this. My mother doesn't run this house. Then prove it. That was the challenge. And the line. Ethan turned to Rosa. You said I still could. She held his gaze. Then stay, he said. Please. Rosa didn't smile, but her eyes softened. Eleanor stepped back like she'd been slapped. So that's it? She hissed. You choose her? No, Ethan said. I choose my daughter. And she chose Rosa long before I did. Eleanor stood in silence for a long moment. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her like the end of a chapter. Later that afternoon, the penthouse was quiet again, but not empty. Ethan made tea. He handed a cup to Rosa in the living room. They sat in stillness, both of them watching the rain. I'm sorry, he said. She didn't answer right away. You let me go, she finally said. I know. You let them silence me. I know. But you called. His voice cracked. I was afraid. I wasn't, she said. He looked at her. She met his eyes. And he knew then nothing he built, bought, or commanded had ever given him what Rosa had given his daughter, a reason to feel. The morning after Eleanor left, the apartment breathed differently. Not quieter, just lighter, as if the walls had exhaled after holding in a storm for too long. The air no longer pressed down. It moved freely, curling around the corners, softening the echoes that once felt like judgment. Rosa stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, stirring pancake batter while Lila sat at the counter, humming under her breath. The crayon box was open beside her, a half-finished drawing peeking out, 3 figures holding hands beneath a yellow sun. Ethan watched from the hallway, unseen. There was no tension in Rosa's shoulders now, no hesitation in Lila's smile. For the first time, it felt like the apartment belonged to its people, not just its furniture. When he stepped in, Rosa glanced up but didn't flinch. Lila beamed. Daddy, Miss Rosa said I can help flip pancakes. He smiled. You trust her with fire? Rosa arched an eyebrow. Only with supervision. He laughed, low and genuine. It had been too long. They sat down to eat together. No tablets, no news, no rush. Just forks clinking and syrup dripping and a child giggling when a pancake folded wrong. It wasn't polished. It wasn't controlled. But it was alive. Later that day, they went outside. The park wasn't far, but it felt like another country compared to the penthouse. Trees whispered in the breeze. Children darted, passed with ice cream and scraped knees. Lila clutched Ethan's hand tightly at first, her eyes wide. Then Rosa knelt. Let's find a flower no one else sees, she whispered. Lila's fingers loosened. She darted into the grass. Ethan exhaled. It felt like letting go of something. He didn't know he'd been carrying. He watched Rosa walk beside his daughter, guiding without hovering, present without control. He remembered how Amanda used to say, children bloom in light, not in shadow. He never really understood it, until now. When Lila ran back, breathless and pink-cheeked, holding a tiny yellow weed like a treasure, Ethan knelt beside her. It's beautiful, he said. She beamed. It's wild. He looked at Rosa. So is she. Rosa smiled, but there was a question in her eyes now, not fear, just uncertainty. After everything, she still wasn't sure if she belonged. They sat together on a bench beneath a canopy of green and gold. Rosa's hands rested in her lap, still for once. Ethan turned to her. I was wrong. She didn't answer. I tried to build a fortress for my daughter, thought I was protecting her, but I was hiding her. Still, she waited. You didn't just help her breathe again, he said. You taught me how to. This time, Rosa met his gaze. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to stay. Not as helpful, not as an outsider. He paused. As family. Her breath caught. But before she could speak, Leela called out from across the lawn. Miss Rosa, come see. Rosa stood, but she didn't move right away. Her eyes glistened, just for a second. Then she walked toward Lila, steady and strong. Ethan stayed behind, letting the image etch itself into memory. His daughter laughing in the sunlight, Rosa beside her, the old weight gone from their movements. Later they stopped, at a small cafe on the way home, the kind with chipped mugs and soft music playing from a dusty speaker. Rosa ordered chamomile tea. Lila chose a cookie the size of her face. Ethan didn't remember the last time he'd sat somewhere without a meeting waiting. When they stepped inside the apartment again, the light through the windows touched everything differently. Even the silence felt kind. That night, as Lila fell asleep wrapped in a blanket Rosa had once folded in frustration, Ethan stood in the hallway, watching her door, cracked open just enough to let the light spill through. He turned to Rosa, who leaned against the opposite wall. I used to think control was love, he said. She nodded. It's not. No, he whispered. It's fear. She stepped forward, slowly. You're not afraid anymore, she said. Not of the wrong things. The pause between them held more than words could. Then Rosa reached out. Ethan took her hand. No promises, just the truth. And for the first time in years, the penthouse didn't feel like a fortress. It felt like home. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If Rosa's strength, Lila's innocence, or Ethan's quiet transformation touched something in you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of the story stayed with you the most? Share it in the comments. We're here to listen. And if this story reminded you of someone, don't hesitate to pass it on. Stories like this deserve to be felt, remembered, and shared. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss our next heartfelt tale. Thank you for being part of this space where stories heal, connect, and inspire. Until next time, stay kind, stay open, and keep the light within you burning.